I mean, you'd think they would
Yeah.
discount it the way that we indies do, but maybe because the publisher's customer is not the reader. The customer for the publisher is the bookstore, and they're trying to sell the books to the bookstore, and so hopefully the bookstore would have all 4, so you'll see the series on the shelf there. That's not always the case, but yeah, if you think about who is the customer of a traditional publisher, and they don't have those tight connections with readers. Some of them are becoming better about that, and some publishers are better than others. I know Sourcebooks is very data driven. Some of the smaller, they're not a big 5, but they're one of the big ones anyway. But in general, you have to think about that, like, who do they care most about? And they're really pushing print, and they're pushing it to bookstores.
It does seem like a business model that would lend itself more to being viable for standalones, because it would be interesting to know how often a bookstore would have the entire set
Mm,
in-house, because you can imagine that they get book 1, there's a run on book 1, it gets to the end of this 6-month period or the year, they send back what's left, and then book 2 comes out. Although maybe you're publishing or an author's publishing more quickly, that they're staying ahead of that, but it's almost like you'd have to make sure you had a new book before that return window closed,
which is
because you want
hard.
to incent the bookstores to keep the ones that they
Mhm.
already have.
Yeah, but the bookstore doesn't wanna have too many of any, unless you're George R. R. Martin. They don't
Yep.
wanna have too many of any one book, so I'll go into bookstores and I'll see out of the 4, they might have 2, they might have 3. Rarely do they have all 4, which in some ways it's good because someone bought ostensibly someone bought one of those books, but yeah, it does make it difficult to sell a full complete series like that.
Well, I have to say that as long as I've been a student of the publishing world, I have never thought about it in terms of the customer of the publisher being the bookstore. That's really interesting. Now I'm going to be pondering that for days, because it does explain a lot of what they do, but also feels like it sort of highlights areas where they could change.